Hello and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey chapter 364. It is the last day of the week, aka the Big Bang Attack workout. I am feeling very good right now, very excited for this workout. But anyways, back to the main subject matter for today. The blood sacrifice. So, the main reason why I wanted to discuss this was because this is such a interesting concept. I discussed it probably a little bit in both of these episodes right here, the previous ones, about not only increased sacrifice or reduced desire, as well as the dating market, or what is it, paranoia, specifically in dating markets and stuff. I briefly mentioned it, and I think that this would probably be a decent time to talk about this, which is the blood sacrifice. Unfortunately, in certain religious backgrounds and or texts, a sacrifice of blood is something that is needed for the successfulness of a higher being. Now, I am not necessarily well versed in these types of things, so this is something that I've learned from seeing offhand ideals, plus other things like that most people will understand once I start talking about them. But there is a very good video about the American nepotism in music. That is a very good video by Izzy that I would link to in the comments. I'll link to in the description, and it's right here. I would highly recommend it. It's a long video. It takes a while to get started, but then when it gets started, it gets started. But basically, it is the motif of the fact that many people, when order to find a certain level of fame and notoriety, will sacrifice someone, something, or someone in particular that is near and dear to them in order to continue on to what is happening. A lot of the stuff, it's very interesting because you can start seeing I wouldn't say parallels, but more so along the lines of a worrying trend when something like that happens most of the time. Unfortunately, you can see it a lot. He explains it in that video, how it's happened a lot of the times around him. And there are people out there that are, unbeknownst to others, are the blood sacrifice, and that's a whole other thing. But if you're like, whoa, pump your brakes, Oscar. Pump your fucking brakes, bro. You're talking about conspiracy theory type of things. That's too wild. There's none of that exists. Well, let me put it in this perspective. At least the common nomenclature perspective, at least. I think a lot of people inherently know the idea of when you go to college, if you have a roommate, if that roommate dies, all of a sudden the other roommate gets straight A's. That is the rumor. Obviously, that isn't necessarily always the case, but it always seems like it happened enough times that it became the rumor, right? And I think it's happened enough. So even if, let's just say, this isn't real, there had to have been enough coincidences where that happens, where it became something. So it might be an urban legend, yes, but it probably is true somewhere, and at least happened once, you know? So for the rest of this video, when I talk about these things, I'm gonna want you to just, if you're like, this is stupid, this isn't happening in reality, listen, first of all, the reality of the world is it's all fucked. So whatever you think it is 10 times worse than you think it is. But secondly, give it a shot and just understand and look at all of the commonalities that happen with these particular people, or the things that just kind of happen. I'll give you one more example of a popular ideal or a popular death that people kind of surround themselves by. But this one I think you'll understand as soon as I say it. Michael Jordan, his father was unfortunately killed in the middle of his peak, basically. And obviously there are rumors that it was because of a gambling debt and a few other things like that, which could be very true. But who knows? He just happened to have been at the wrong place at the wrong time. But also, gambling is one of those things, and we know that Jordan is a big-ass gambler. It only makes sense for him to continue his prime. He had to sacrifice something from his old life. Unfortunately, it was his father. And I'm not saying that he did it on his own, and he wanted it to happen, of course, But there are roads that lead to the area where there is no more decisions for you. What is it? There are no more decisions you can make. Only decisions can be made for you. And this happens a lot. I feel like it's an open secret that half of the entertainment industry is like that. You can only get up to so far until somebody takes a liking to you in one way or another. And to make it a little topical, just because, actually, I'll save that one later for the later topical. But with that being said, just open your mind a little bit and think about this. And if you question any of the stuff that I'm talking about, please leave it in the comment section down below. But with that being said, I will see you at Mother Base. All right, so started this day off with a single arm lat pull down, which was pretty good. But anyways, back to the main subject matter for today, the blood sacrifice. So first, before I continue on talking about any of this, this is something I truly don't believe in. I don't think that there is such a thing to say in that people do this. I think that this happens to them more so often than not, but I don't think that I believe in it, because I don't think that we should probably do this, because this is probably some other type of religious wacky background that you have to have, or whatever you think, in order for it to be real or made into reality. But that's not to say that this doesn't already happen, and or that people don't believe it. This is more just talking about the general gist of what happens around with certain things, especially when it comes to famous people and death that surrounds them. One of the examples that happened relatively recently is the singer-songwriter David, with an 4 instead of an A. He ended up having his Tesla found with a young girl that he was having a relationship with. She was 15, I believe he was 25, something along those lines. It was a pretty big gap, but she was underage, and she was dead, found in his car. I believe at the moment of this recording this, I think he's still not arrested for some reason or another. So that is part of it. But this isn't just one example of it, but this always keeps happening. It seems as though that there's always some type of death in and around some type of famous person, whether it be somebody just happened to be adjacent to a death or something along those lines. Obviously, there are freak accidents and things like that, of course, but it always seems to happen either when they're young in their career or something else that's a little bit more just weird, generally weird. But this isn't just the first time I think anybody's heard of this, nor I think it's the last time. I think as more and more time progresses, we're going to hear about these types of stories where people were quote unquote sacrificed to a whatever altar they want to be in order for somebody adjacent to them to, take their place or to get higher status in society, because sometimes these things are just done to you and you don't even realize it. But there are a bunch of them. For example, one famous example of an actor is Johnny Depp's friend River Phoenix, who ended up dying when he was younger back in 1993, which is very interesting. That happens then. Obviously, things happen for Johnny Depp. He's probably already famous by then, but still, that's an example Another example of this in the music industry is when Metallica's bassist ended up dying in a car crash and they had to replace him. And it wasn't until after Injustice for All, because of course their first album, they ended up changing everything, how it went, and all of a sudden they became ultra mega stars. Because I believe that in the trajectory that they were going, I don't think that Metallica would have gone as big as they did if they didn't release the Black Album. Because I think that nowadays you can find them literally anywhere. There's literally a curse called the Curse of the White House Chefs, where for some reason, why, I don't know what it is, but a lot of them end up dying in very weird and mysterious ways. Most recently was President Obama's chef, who happened to be drowning in the middle of a lake somewhere in the middle of the night for some reason. Very strange and very forgotten, because of course anything like that is never really talked about or held on to, specifically because it might cause a little too much of a problem for a lot of different people. So they just kind of sweep it under the rug. Another thing that happens, and I think that I can't really necessarily discuss this directly, but I do think that there is something with younger people where they harvest certain parts of them, blood, and they
get it and use it for whatever they want to, and whatever whoever they is whoever you think they is, because that's a whole other conversation. But this is an open secret. If you watch I believe it is Sandra Bullock on Ellen, she discusses this openly, and what I believe is a humiliation ritual, which is a different episode for a different day. But it's honestly something that it's kind of like an open secret at this point. People will do these things, and now I don't believe in it personally, but they do. And these are the types of people you don't want to fuck with, because realistically, they're going to try to get you and get your loved ones, because that's what they can do. People like this all exist all the time, and it is ignorant for us to believe that they don't exist, or these types of things aren't really happening in the background, because we would like to believe that these things were left into the past and this is a very barbaric type of thing. But unfortunately, a lot of people still believe in many of these things, and still believe that these things help them in their career. So they're willing to fish out or sell out parts of their family members or lineage or whoever in order to get into a upper echelon of society. To think that this doesn't already happen, and or isn't already happening in the sense that there are people that go missing all the time because of their youth and things like that, is asinine and honestly ignorant to the realities of the world. Everybody always forgets about the Wayfarer thing, which is always a funny thing for me, where in Wayfarer a few years back, they had a bunch of listings that were of benign regular items, but they were very expensive, and they were also the names of people that were missing too. So it was like $7,000 for a desk, that was named like Millie, and the name also was adjacent to somebody who was missing at the time. It was a child that was missing. So the point that I'm trying to make is that these people, whomever this is, because I want to leave that one up to the audience here, they will just use people that they see or deem as whatever, and use them for their own ritualistic purposes. And sometimes they don't have a choice, and that's the unfortunate part, but realistically, we can't really discuss that. Even now, I can't say certain words when talking about this, or else the video will probably get just taken down straight up, which is kind of crazy, just to even think about it. Oh, and another popular example of a musician that I completely forgot to mention earlier. Nirvana, look at that. The singer happens to kill himself, and then all of a sudden, hey, look, the drummer who happened to be in Nirvana is now all of a sudden famous. It's interesting that this always goes on, and things like that happen at adjacent wise. And look, I don't want this to be real. I don't want this to be a thing. But there's a lot of question marks that come up when it comes to these things. Too many coincidences are just too much. There is no such thing as a coincidence, especially when you're older. That just doesn't happen anymore. You realize, hey, there are some bad people out there, very bad. In fact, bad to the point where you'd probably want to get rid of them from society. But realistically, they're so high up in society, can't really do anything about it. But every time somebody wants to do something about it, they just doesn't go their way. And then all of a sudden, you never hear from them again.
And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercises not filmed, none. Exercises skipped, also none. Got everything in, thankfully. But anyways, back to the main subject matter for today. Blood sacrifice. So the main reason why I wanted to discuss this is because I think that a lot of people don't want to accept the idea that something like this could even happen, really. And I feel like a lot more of an open secret, especially nowadays with so many things being known about these people, especially those that are in higher power, and those that and the things that they want from people, and all those other things, all the emails that are leaked, all the things that we know. I think a lot of people want to believe that the world is a lot better than it actually is. And unfortunately, it's not like that. A lot of the time, people are much worse than you think, and in fact are probably doing some weird ritualistic things behind the scenes. There's something I've probably mentioned in the voiceover about that rhymes with Google Chrome. Can't really talk about the regular version of that because people, fortunately, it's not something that we can even discuss because it's been basically just ostracized and things like that. But it's a whole other subject for a whole other day. But it's just an issue now where even the idea of talking about these things is seen as kind of crazy, which is thankfully becoming less and less crazy as the world gets crazier. Things are just kind of being revealed as time progresses. I think it's just important to look at it and know and understand what happens and why these things happen. I mean, recently, by the time this video actually comes out, it'll have already been like a couple months since this happened. But that David rapper singer guy who had the dead body in his car. Now his situation was a little different, of course, because he was a fucking asshole predator. But that's a whole other subject matter. But it's still like there's something where death follows people. You can see this in all sorts of industries. You're not necessarily just locked into pop mainstream music, but rap and R&B, even smaller independent artists are just also kind of in the same realm, or other movie stars and things like that. It's interesting to know this because once you see it, you can't unsee it. So then you start connecting the dots a lot more regularly throughout all of the things that you see. And the thing about it is, and this is the main thing, and I'll talk about this, I'll probably make an entire video about this part right here in particular. No, just because you don't believe in it doesn't mean they don't believe in it. So they do believe in it. You may be just completely doubting any of this and saying this is stupid. I don't believe any of this. Yes, you might not believe in it, but they do 100%. And who's they? Well, whoever you want to put they as, really. But anybody who's in high echelons of power that believe in these types of things, they use weird ritualistic ceremonies in order to pray to whatever god that they believe in. And it is, I personally think that should be more often known by people, but yet for some reason it is still a surprise or rejected because it's such a powerful thing, and or such an ludicrous sounding thing that it can't be real. But yet it would explain a lot. And also, these people do believe in these things. It's just those who talk about it too loudly get silenced, usually. That's kind of also a different subject for a different day. But with that being said, though, tell me what you think in the comments section down below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one. If you have any stories or connections that you may have witnessed or seen or know or anything like that, please leave in the comment section down below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video with anybody who may or may not like it. I will be back on tomorrow with a new video. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I will see you in the next one. Keep it heavy. Stay safe out there. Stay cool out there. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace!